Okay, so this video is going to be about photogrammetry, bringing in our photogrammetry projects. Now, you may notice my scene is very different. It's because I tested this, and my Unity froze. So now's a good time that if I didn't already talk about this in class, to say, make sure you're saving your scene, right? So if we go into save, just the normal save will save your scene. That's different than saving your project, right? It's probably best to do both. So I'll hit save, I'll save my project too, just to be safe, right? So now let's get into bringing in our photogrammetry. So I have on my thing here some photogrammetry I did, very bad, quick photogrammetry. But we'll come up with these three pieces to ours, so the object file, the material file, and the texture. And it's as simple as just taking it and dragging it in here. Right now, like I said, when I did it the first time, it froze everything. Probably because my computer was running real hot. I hadn't saved in the entirety of doing these videos. Hopefully you won't have the same problem. So over here we have our model. And this is the file that you're going to take and just drag in, right? And so you see here we obviously have a scale problem. We have a rotation problem. All we need to do is, of course, fix these things. So I'll make it smaller, rotate it along the axis here. Woo, go there. Come on. Let me get closer into here. And I'll even try to get it on the ground. Boink. There we go. And obviously the rotation is, depending on what your model is, right, you'll do this. So I've got my model here, and that's really as simple as it is. Bringing in these three files together, it should naturally put the texture on. Now what happens, you may bring it in and it won't have the texture on it, and by texture I mean your file here, right? So you can see that it has the texture on here, especially if you accidentally do them one at a time. So I have a copy of this. Where's this? It's called ducks, right? So if I bring in just this obj file, right, and I'm like, oh wait, I need the materials and the things here. So let's hope we have no freezing. And now I'm going to bring in these other two files. Now when I drag out my ducks, notice that it has no, it doesn't have the texture on it. So how do we fix this? Let me just make those smaller so it's less comically big. And the answer here is we select it down in our assets. We come up here and there's this window called, so this is different than selecting it here, just so you know. So I select it there. We go over to materials. And for this, right, we need to look through this folder for the thing that's named the same, right, because these files will be named the same. We say use external materials. Now this one, I have a weird thing where I've tried this a bunch of times, and once in a while it gets it through one of, I never know which one it's going to pick. I'm going to leave by base texture name because that should be right. And I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. Wait a minute for it to figure it out and hope for the best. And there it is. It was the best, right? So just by base texture name worked. So that's what happens if you somehow, when you're importing things, whether it's your photogrammetry, whether it's an external thing you download. Now know that there's different file types and there'll be different things where you may have to say use embedded materials or something like that. But this is where you will play with something to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this out of the scene real quick. Okay, so now we have these two objects on our screen, and there's one problem with these objects, right? And that's when I go into my scene, I walk around, I can just pass right through these things, right? And we know that that's a matter of colliders, right? So we have to set up colliders for these. Now these are going to be a little different than before we had a box collider. We're going to use something called a mesh collider to create these. So now the piano is easy, right? The piano came probably with a mesh built in, unlike our photogrammetry files. So let's look at this one very easily. I come down, I select it, I come down to add component, right? I've already typed in collider, so I just look through those for a mesh collider. And you'll see it automatically gets populated with the built-in mesh that this file that I downloaded came with. And And that's great. That's all I need to do for that one. Now the ducks, on the other hand, are slightly different. And so let's explore that. So I'll click on the obj file, right? And that's our import kind of settings. And if we look down, we see this thing right here, generate colliders in the meshes. So I'm going to click that button and I'm going to hit apply. Let it work for a second to create a collider mesh. And now I'm going to go hit play. And let's see what happens here. So, whoops, I'm getting hung up. See now here, right, I can't walk through my piano. And I also, I guess I should probably use the mouse too, right? I have successfully created so I can't walk through. I'm basically stuck, hung up on my ducks. So that's the simple ways to do that. So we don't actually have to go in and add the specific collider to our object, as far as I know. Now, I could have built the mesh out of something else and done that, but that's going to be the easiest way for us to do this.